Okay then, so in today's video we're going to take a deep look at reading part 5 from the Reading and Use of English paper on the C2 Proficiency Cambridge exam. And what we're going to do is analyse the questions in detail. So if you know this part, you know that it's basically a long read. So we've got a couple of pages of a novel here to look at. And we have 6 questions, which you can see here under my camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hopefully there, with 4 possible answers, A, B, C, or D. So what I want to do in this video is basically go through this exercise, show you how I would get the correct answers, and also show you the typical tricks and things, the linguistic traps that they set for you, basically in order to make you choose the wrong answer, right? And hopefully that means you can avoid them when you sit the proficiency exam. And I'm sure if you're not quite at proficiency level, then at absolute worst, what you're going to do is hear a lot of very good, useful, advanced English vocabulary here. So without further ado, let's get into this. By the way, where am I getting this exercise from? A book I really highly recommend. It's Objective Proficiency. This is the student's book, topic 4.1, which you can see here, right? Sweet Rituals is the name of the lesson today, but we're going to go straight into the reading exercise, right? So what I like to do really is, so as not to waste time in this exercise, is just start by reading the first question. I'm going to ignore the possible options, right? So let's read here. Number 1, it says, what was Mr. Salgado's state of mind before his tea party with Miss Nilly? Okay, so I need to think. How was Mr. Salgado thinking? How was he feeling? What was his state of mind before the party with Miss Nilly, right? Okay, so let's start reading. This is going to be near the beginning. We're going to find the first answer probably in the first paragraph. So let's start reading then. Before Miss Nilly first came to our house on the Poya holiday of April 1969, Mr. Salgado only said to me, "A lady is coming to tea." Okay, so far we don't know how he feels, right? As if a lady came to tea every week. It had never happened before in his life, or mine, and yet he acted as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Luckily, he gave me some warning. He was concerned to make sure there was plenty of time to prepare, even though he acted so nonchalant. I made everything: little coconut cakes, patties, egg sandwiches, ham sandwiches, cucumber sandwiches, and even love cake. Right, so what is his state of mind? It seems to me that this is a new thing, right? I think he's a bit nervous. I think he's a bit excited, right? That a woman is coming to visit him to his tea party, right? But he's trying to behave like it's natural, like it's no big deal, right? He's nonchalant, yeah? So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look here at the options. So A, he felt confident, as it was a role he was accustomed to performing. It's clearly not something he was accustomed to, as this had never happened before in his life. So no, definitely not that, right? It's definitely not A. I think we can eliminate A. It's not A. Right, so let's have a look at B. He appeared relaxed, but inwardly he was worrying about the event. Yeah, absolutely. So he appeared relaxed, like it was natural. It was all fine, the most natural thing in the world. But it had really never happened. but he acted so nonchalant, right? He appeared relaxed, but inwardly he was worrying about the event. He was worrying about the event because he said he was concerned to make sure that there was plenty of time to prepare. Yeah, I think it's B. Let's see if we can eliminate the other options. C, he wished he had told his cook about the visit more in advance. Well, no, as we've just seen, he said he did make sure that there was plenty of time. It says, luckily he gave me some warning, right? He did prepare in advance, so it's not C. D, he became nervous about his cook's obvious lack of experience. Well, we know that maybe the cook had a lack of experience in terms of a woman coming to the tea party, but not in terms of cooking. And he doesn't seem particularly concerned about the cook's lack of experience. I think he's just concerned that a woman is coming to tea, and he's very excited about that, and rightly so. I think we can safely say that the answer to number 1 is B. So I think we're ready to move on to question number 2. Let's have a look at question number 2. It says, what effect did Miss Nilly's large appetite have on the narrator? So we're about line 9, I think, here. No, we're talking about all the things that he made, even love cake. Okay, I made enough for a horse. So we're trying to focus here on the effect Miss Nilly's large appetite has on the narrator. So the person who's narrating the story, how does he feel about the fact that she eats a lot, basically? I made enough for a horse. It was just as well. She ate like a horse. Right. So there he says she has a large appetite. Do we know how he feels? Not very clear so far. He's just glad that he made a lot of food. I don't know where she put it. Yeah, okay. I don't know where she put it. She was so skinny then. Right. I don't know where she put it. Here. Interesting turn of phrase there. She was so skinny, right? So he's figuratively saying, where was it going, you know? She was so slim, but she was eating so much, right? So hungry looking. I expected her to bulge out as she ate, like a snake swallowing a bird, right? He expected her to get sort of bloated and fat as she was eating, but she just sat there on the cane chair, one leg coiled under her, her back straight, and her face floating happily in the warm afternoon haze, while huge chunks of the richest, juiciest love cake disappeared into her as into a cavern. So, what effect does it seem to have on the narrator? Well, he seems to be rather impressed that she eats so much, yet she's so skinny, and she's not sort of all bloated out and looking uncomfortable. She looks very calm and happy, and he's almost he's very poetic about her attitude, the way she just looks calm and sort of floating, one leg coiled under the other. So two sort of snaky references there, but one very different to the other. Yeah, so how does he feel? I don't know. What effect does his appetite have on the narrator? So could it be A, he felt rather sorry for her because she was so hungry? Well, he does say that she is hungry looking, but does he say he feels sorry for her? No, he's describing her in a nice way, really, if anything. He suspected that she was hiding some food. Now, this is a linguistic trap, right? Because he says, I don't know where she put it. He's not saying that he thinks she's hiding the food. It's a figurative expression, which means that as she was so thin, it's like, where was all the food going, you know? So I think that was a trick Answer B. Okay, what about C? He had mixed feelings about her unconventional way of eating. Well, it says, it starts off almost critical. You know, it's sort of surprising. No, she ate like a horse. But then as, you know, and he was sort of worried that she'd get all bloated and sort of expecting her to. Yeah, and he seems confused that she's so skinny, yet she eats so much. But then he describes how she looks so calm, with one leg coiled under another, and her back straight, which is elegant, of course, to stand with your back straight, to sit with your back straight, her face floating happily. And yeah, I guess his feelings are kind of mixed. C doesn't look like a bad answer. What about D? Can we eliminate D? He thought she should take more care when she ate. That she should be more careful, that she should be less messy. I can't see any evidence for that. No, I think in 2 we're going to have to go with answer C. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to question 3. So it says, why did the narrator derive so much satisfaction? Why did the narrator derive so much satisfaction when he heard the phrase, Triton made it? Okay, right, so let's see. So we're on line 15, as it disappeared as to a cavern. So let's just move that up a bit. You like cake? He asked her stupidly. She made a lowing sound between bites. Yeah, lowing is like the noise that a cow makes, more or less. The popular Christmas carol, the cattle, what is it? Away in a manger. Yes, the cattle are lowing. Yes. You like cake? He asked her stupidly. She made a lowing noise, a lowing sound between bites. It made him happy, and although I didn't approve of her being quite so inhibited so soon in our house, I was touched too. Now I think this could be important to number 2 as well, right? It talks about her feelings. So he didn't approve of her being quite so uninhibited, right? But I was touched too. So he didn't necessarily like her going with her mouth full like a cow. But he was also, he liked it. No, he was touched. It touched him. It made him feel some sort of affection, I guess, for her. He was pleased. Okay, so that doesn't really tell us about this sentence that we're looking at. Triton made it. Why does that satisfy him so much? So in line number 20, where did you get this cake? Her lips glistened with my butter, and one corner of her mouth had a line of golden semolina crumbs, which smudged into a dimple as she spoke. Triton made it, Mr. Salgado said. Triton made it. It was the one phrase he would say with my name again and again, like a refrain through those months, giving me such happiness. So he liked it, right? Why did he like it? Why did it give him satisfaction? Triton made it. Clear, pure, and unstinting. His voice at those moments would be a channel cut from heaven to earth, right through the petrified morass of our lives, releasing a blessing like water springing from a river head, from a god's head. It was bliss, my coming of age. So why did he get satisfaction from it? So he calls, this is interesting, calls it, seems like it was sort of one of the few good things in his lives. My coming of age, that's an interesting expression. It's like he feels like he's realized himself. No, he's achieved something, I suppose you could say. Okay. Right, so I think we can have a look at the options then. So, option A, it gave him a sense of purpose in his life. That looks pretty good. As I said, it gave him a sense of purpose in his life. He says, my coming of age, right? It also says, like a channel cut from heaven to earth, right through the petrified morass of all our lives. So if a channel is cut from heaven to earth, you can see your trajectory up into the heavens, right? So that's a really interesting sentence. Cut through the petrified morass. So suggesting that their lives were a bit boring and sort of, monotonous or something. So I think A looks pretty good. B, Mr. Salgado said the phrase so rarely. No, he didn't say it rarely. He said it very often. It was the one thing he would say again and again, right? Triton made it. C, Miss Neely didn't believe the cake was homemade. I don't see anything else. Read on a bit. In line 30, she says, your cook, he makes lovely cake. I don't think she says. She said endearing herself to me for the rest of her life. He was glad that she liked it, and she said that. She made that remark about his cooking. So clearly, I don't think she disbelieved that it was homemade. No, I don't think it's C. The words improved the atmosphere at the tea party. Well, there's this spring water. The channel cut through the petrified morass of all our lives. But I don't think that's just the tea party, right? It's life in general. It was a bit boring, a bit dull for them. So I'm not sure that it's the atmosphere at the tea party was particularly bad, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's A. It gave him a sense of purpose in life. Okay, let's have a look at number 4 then. And it says, how did the narrator feel about his taxi ride back to the house? Okay, so let's just move this up a little bit. So, how did the narrator, so that's Triton, feel about the taxi ride back to the house? So we're in line 30, right? Line 30 says, your cook, he makes lovely cake, she said, endearing herself to me for the rest of my life. Okay, after tea, she said she had to go. I went to get a taxi for her. She stayed with him alone in the house while I went up the main road. I went up to the main road. It didn't take long. A black tortoise of a taxi with a butter-coloured top came along, and I rode in it like a prince back to the house. So how did the narrator feel about the taxi ride back to the house? Well, he felt like a prince. The driver croaked the old horn, warning them of our approach. We rolled in right up to the porch. I got out, held the door open while Mr. Salgado helped her in. Bye-bye, she said to him, and then turned to me. That cake was really good. So how did he feel about the taxi ride? Well, it seems like he felt like a prince. No. Yeah. So let's have a look at the options. A, he was annoyed that it was such a slow vehicle. I think he does suggest that it's a slow vehicle in that he says it's a black tortoise. Does he say that annoys him, that bothers him? I don't think so. He was concerned about Miss Neely during his absence. No, he said that she stayed alone. She stayed alone. Whoa, she stayed alone in the house while I went up to the main road. I don't think it says that he's concerned. And, well, why would he be concerned? That would be a strange feeling to have, I think. No. C. He appreciated being helped out of the taxi. He wasn't helped out of the taxi. Mr. Salgado helped her, that's Neely, in. I got out, he says, and held the door open. So I don't think anyone helped Triton to get out of the taxi. So, no. D, he enjoyed the relative luxury of the experience. Yeah, it was luxury. He says, I felt I rode in it like a prince back to the house, right? Of course, he's not a prince. He's a servant, a cook. So, yeah, I think he just felt it was a bit luxurious, a bit of luxury in his life for once. Okay, yeah, I think we can move on to number 5 with no problems at all. So it says, what do we learn about the narrator in the penultimate paragraph? Right, okay. What do we learn about the narrator in the penultimate paragraph? So we're just going to start here in line 40. The taxi rolled down to the gate and veered to the left. Okay, we're going to have to move over here, I think. And wobbled, making the white walls around the rim go fuzzy. Mr. Salgado watched the vehicle slowly disappear. The lady ate well, I said brightly. Yes, sir. The love cake was good. Really good? Yes. And the patties also she liked. They were good. Okay, and is this the penultimate paragraph? Yeah, it is. So the last paragraph's very long. Okay, the penultimate paragraph here then, and we're looking for what we learn about the narrator in the penultimate paragraph. So what do we learn about Triton here? Okay, so it says, they were more than good. I knew because I can feel it inside me when I get it right. It's a kind of energy that revitalizes every cell in my body. Suddenly, everything becomes possible, and the whole world that before seemed slowly to be coming apart at the seams pulls together. Yeah, so it feels like his life is often falling apart at the seams. That's a nice expression. Seams are the stitching on your clothes, right? It feels like your life is falling apart, but when he gets his job right, it feels like everything's possible. Everything's, so yeah, everything pulls together. But however confident I was about the perfection of what I produced, like everybody else, I needed praise. So he's somebody that needs praise, right? We're learning that about him. I needed his praise and I needed her praise. I felt stupid to need it, but I did. All right, so what do we learn about him? A, his success in the kitchen dictated his general mood. I think, yeah, possibly. It's a kind of energy that revitalizes every cell in my body. Everything becomes possible. And yeah, he says he needed the praise. I needed praise, right? So it's like he really needs it to feel good about himself. So if he does his job well, if he gets the food right, if he feels good about himself. So yeah, I think it could be A. B, he thought it reasonable to expect praise for his cooking. He did, I don't know if he expected it really. He needed it. Did he expect it? Not really. In fact, he says he felt stupid I felt stupid to need it. So he didn't expect it. He felt stupid that he wanted it, but he did want it. So I don't think it's B. He knew he would benefit from some help in preparing the food. But I don't see anything that suggests that. Some help? I don't know. Is there any suggestion that somebody's going to help him with the preparation of the food? I can't see anything in C that would even suggest that. So, D. His feelings had been hurt by Nili and Mr. Salgado. I don't think so. He's asking for praise. Mr. Salgado is giving it to him. He's already received some from Nili. Mr. Salgado says they were good, and, he says they were more than good. He's saying to himself. I don't think his feelings were hurt, though. But, he felt satisfied. He got his praise, and he knew that he'd done his job well. He could feel it in himself. So I don't think he's sad. No, I don't think he's hurt. No. Yeah, I think the answer is clearly A. Yeah, his success in the kitchen dictated his general mood. Okay, I think we can move on to the final question on today's activity, and it says, which phrase best describes Mr. Salgado's behaviour at the subsequent tea parties, right? So how does he behave in the tea parties after this first one? Oh, it's a long paragraph. So it says, she came again the following Poya Day, and then regularly almost every weekend after that for months. I made mutton patties and a small cake every time, and she always said how wonderful they were. Right, here's Mr. Salgado. What did he do? Mr. Salgado ate nothing. So he didn't eat anything, we know that. He watched her eat as if we were feeding an exotic bird. So he's sort of absorbed by her. I guess he's in love with her or something, right? As if we were feeding an exotic bird. He drank tea. Well, that's another thing he did. He always drank lots of tea. Estate fresh, upcountry, broken orange, pico tiptoe tea. Wow, that's a crazy sentence, but yeah, he's just talking about tea. He looked completely content when she was there. His face would be bright, his mouth slightly open, with the tips of his teeth just showing. So he's kind of contented, he's smiling, he drinks lots of tea, he doesn't eat anything. These are things that we know. Line 65. It was as if he couldn't believe his eyes. Yeah, he couldn't believe his eyes, seeing Nili sitting there in front of him. All right, so he's in disbelief, I guess. I would bring the patties in 4 at a time, fried only after she arrived to ensure they came fresh and hot, straight from the pan. When she finished the last of the first batch, I would wait a minute before bringing a second plate. Nice and hot, missy, I would say, and she would murmur her approval. I don't know if they go on to talk about Mr. Salgado anymore. Let's have a look at the possible answers. Which phrase best describes Mr. Salgado's behaviour at subsequent tea parties? Feverishly eating and drinking? Well, he drank a lot of tea, yes, but we know he didn't eat anything, right? Mr. Salgado ate nothing in these tea parties. So it can't be A. Full of praise for Triton's wonderful efforts. He was happy. Was he happy about the food? Did he praise the food? I don't see that, to be honest. It says that Nilly did. She always said how wonderful they were. But Mr. Salgado, no. Slightly incredulous at Nilly's regular presence, yeah. Yeah, he couldn't believe his eyes. As if he couldn't believe his eyes, seeing Nilly sitting there in front of him. Yeah, he's there with his mouth sort of open, the tips of his teeth, his mouth slightly open. Yeah, he just looks like he's shocked. He's completely enamored. Yeah, so I think it's probably C, right? What about D then? C sounds good to me. Yeah, D, nervously monitoring the supply of food. I don't know. Does he say anything about that? So after line 71, I would come in again with fresh tea. More patties? She would shake her head. I would always ask when her mouth was full. This allowed Mr. Salgado to speak on her behalf. No, bring the cake now. It was our little ritual. I would nod, she would smile, and he would look longingly. Longingly, like he wanted something. He wanted her, didn't he? Yeah, so I don't think he's nervously monitoring the supply of food. That's really that's the cook's job, right? That's Triton's job. I don't think Mr. Salgado's doing that. He would nod and say, bring the cake in. That's not nervously monitoring the supply of food. Okay, so yeah. I would give her enough time to savour the aftertaste of the patties and feel the glow of coriander inside her. Let the tea slip down to cleanse her palate and subdue the nerves that had been excited by the spice and fattened by the meat, and only then bring out the cake on a small salver for Mr. Salgado to cut. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the answer there is C. He's just slightly incredulous at Nilly's regular presence. He couldn't believe his luck, really, looking at her longingly in disbelief. Yeah, I think we've finished then for today. Hopefully that helps you. These are sort of very typical things that you'll see, misleading sentences, misleading possible answers rather. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.